Good morning. Good morning. While we're on a short production break, I wanted to bring back one of the most important conversations I think we've ever had on this show. This is the very first The Sisterhood Chronicles episode 006. And if you've ever felt confused, disappointed, or even quietly hurt in your friendships, this one will absolutely land. I think a lot of us were raised on the idea that friendship should just work, it should just come together really easily and simply, that if it's real, it's easy and effortless, and that's just not the truth in adulthood, and we know this, right? This episode is a deeper, more honest look at female friendships, the beautiful parts, but also the messy, unspoken dynamics that we don't always have the right language for. If you're new here, this is a really great episode to start at, and if you've been listening for a while, I actually think this is one of those episodes that truly hits differently, and we could always use a refresh no matter what you're going through. Also, if you're in a season where questioning certain friendships or just wanting more depth and alignment in your relationships is something at the top of mind, this is something I work through privately with clients. All the information you need is in the show notes, but for now, let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the podcast, ladies. This is the Sage Sorority. It's your host, Chantel, and happy Thursday. I hope you're having a fabulous week. This weather is absolutely delightful. London has been on her best behavior the last couple days, and today is no exception. It's truly like the crown jewel of spring in London right now, so naturally everyone is in a good mood, including me. Today, we're going to discuss the complicated layer and mosaic of friendships, specifically female friendships. This will likely be a series. There are so many different aspects of female friendships that I want to cover. And personally, I think that this is such a complex and big part of my life and story as well. So I want to give it the nuance and contextual effort that it truly deserves. So let's go. You know that saying, friends are the family we choose? It sounds beautiful, but let's be honest, female friendships are often very layered and nuanced, as I mentioned earlier. They can truly be your safe haven, but also a source of confusion, unspoken tensions, and in some cases, unfortunately, deep heartbreak. I personally have experienced a multitude of all of those things, if not more. And it's so weird, isn't it? Because there is no real handbook on how to be a good friend, yet somehow we're all expected to instinctively understand these unwritten rules. And when I reflect on it, this paradox extends to almost all of our meaningful relationships, to be honest. Our entire lives are defined by these connections, yet we're given so little guidance on how to navigate them in a successful way. In a way, relationships, and I truly believe this, are life's ultimate test. All the self-development work, all the personal growth, all the therapy, it's really just prep for the real challenge, which is successfully navigating relationships, connecting authentically with other people. We spend years in school learning things like algebra and chemistry and literature, but one of life's most essential skills, building, maintaining successful relationships, we are expected to somehow master on our own, and you are truly up the creek without a paddle if your parents didn't teach you. So today we're going to introduce the Sisterhood Chronicles on why female friendships matter. And truly they are like any other bond. Studies obviously show and have been showing us recently that they boost our well-being, reduce stress, and honestly even help us live longer. But obviously beyond the science, every woman feels the power of good friends in her life. And honestly, she feels a lack thereof as well. So let's talk a little bit more about why they matter so much and what makes a strong, lasting female friendship. They're not just there in a nice to have way, they're there in a fundamental life-altering way that research has only really begun to appreciate and notice. File this under women's health deserves better funding, but that's a conversation for another day. Think about your closest female friend for a moment, right? The person who's probably seen you at your absolute worst, maybe even versions of yourself that you hope never return. We're talking someone who's maybe helped you move, someone who's held your hair back while you were sick, someone who's sat with you during incredible grief or incredible heartbreak. It could be just someone who you text at any random point of the day that just makes you feel less alone, someone who laughs at your silly jokes, or someone that you can even be really weird with. When we look beyond our personal experiences and examine the broader patterns, something honestly really fascinating is very clear. These connections that we will just fob off as just friendships are so incredibly powerful in terms of shaping our well being in ways that science, like I've mentioned, is only really beginning to quantify. And before you roll your eyes, there's truly data to support this. So, Dr. Laura Silberstein Tersch from the Center for Compassion Focused Therapy, which is in NYC if anyone cares, points out that female friendships actually trigger the release of oxytocin, which we all know is the love hormone. And this is the same hormone that is released during childbirth, good hugs, and orgasms. So it's basically telling us that this chemical reaction literally is released through good friendships, good female friendships. It triggers joy and love and connection. And honestly, you can't have deep connection without oxytocin. This chemical reaction literally reduces our stress levels and increases our sense of safety in the world. And then there was another study, this one's from UCLA, and I found this really interesting, that while men respond to stress with the fight or flight, kind of women actually go in a different direction, and it's called tend and befriend. I've actually never heard this before, but I found it fascinating. So basically, when life gets difficult, women instinctively seek out and nurture connections with other women. And it's not just a preference, it's literally biological. But the impact of these friendships goes far beyond like moments of crisis, right? We know this. Female friendships shape our identities in ways that we don't even really acknowledge properly. They're often the relationships where we can be our most authentic selves without the gendered expectations that often come with our partners and in our family. This is huge. And when I was reading this, I had like that emoji where you have like that brain cloud, because it's like, this is so true. The person you get to be with your closest friends is often one that is unburdened with a lot of expectations that come from women in the house, women partnering with men, and women in family dynamics. Crazy, right? I'm going to interrupt this thought flow with another thought to kind of get your mind going. Think about the person in this world with whom you feel the most free, your most unburdened self, if you will. Text them when the episode is finished, obviously, and just tell them that. Just be like, honestly, I have come to the realization that I feel really free when we're together, or I'm super grateful for our friendship because I feel so free and unburdened in your presence, and you don't have to say anything. I'm just really grateful for that. I think that's just a beautiful thought. Anyways, another huge reason why our friendships are incredibly vital to our happiness and well-being is that it's also a private space where we don't have to contort ourselves into more palatable versions of femininity. Here's another like big point that just like really stuck out to me. We don't have to be smaller, quieter, more accommodating. We don't have to be fake. We don't have to be anything other than ourselves. You can be messy, ambitious, angry, aggressive, all of these things that you are not allowed to be as a woman, particularly sometimes at home, sometimes definitely with your family, and definitely at work. You're just allowed to be unruly, unhinged, without fear of being labeled difficult or high maintenance. Definitely one of my best things about being with my friends. I like letting my freak flag fly. I like being myself. And I also like giving space to myself and in hopes showing my friends that we actually don't have to be good all the time either, because we're not. We're humans. We're super fallible. And we all have our good, bad, and ugly, which I say often. And as long as there's mutual respect and love between us, we don't have to pretend to be perfect because we're not. I think that this matters tremendously in a world that places a lot of pressure on women to be emotional caretakers in most relationships. Our feminine friendships often offer the reciprocity that can be super hard to find elsewhere. And fun fact, reciprocity is a huge value for most women in their friendships. What you give to me, I will give to you. And if that's imbalance, there's probably an issue in the friendship, at least on someone's end. This creates space where our emotional needs aren't treated as burdensome, but as entirely valid parts of our connection and par for the course. Having a moment with your friend, good, bad, or ugly, bursting into tears seeing puppies, or bursting into tears because you are somehow reminded of an ex that you dated a million years ago, most friends, most good friends, are not going to find that as a burdensome. That's just life. That's just you being yourself. Emotions come, they go up, down. I always say they're like waves. They will come in, and if you give them time, they will go out. But you might not feel like that with your siblings, or you might not feel like that with your partner. And you sure as hell don't feel like that at work. There's something so special about being able to be seen by someone who isn't obligated to love you. Unlike family ties, we know friendships are completely voluntary, right? Every time a friend chooses to keep showing up for you, they're making an active decision that you matter, your friendship matters, and they want to keep it going. And that is very special. As the Gottmans would say, it's a bid for connection. And we're so lucky, so grateful that with friends, it happens often. It happens in small doses, it happens in large doses. But ultimately, we're grateful that it just keeps happening. And it keeps happening for someone who's being their true self. It is such a pure love when you really think about it. That's a unique validation in that choice that you're making, I'm making, she's making all the time. So basically, when we integrate all of this, the research, the history, the personal experiences, a better picture starts to take form, and it really challenges us to reconsider how we've been taught to prioritize relationships in our lives. When I look at research and I reflect on my own experience as well, I've truly come to believe that female friendships are not a luxury. Like, it's not a luxury. It's not a nice to have. It's truly a necessity. I look back on my life, my 20s, and I would say even more so my 30s. And wow, I wouldn't have got through it in the way that I did without good friends. Without good friends, without great friends, without okay friends, without having the energy to make new friends, without old friends. I'm grateful for it all, and truly a crucial building block to my happiness. They are not by any means a consolation prize for women who haven't found romantic partners. This is very important, guys. Whether you're married, single, in a relationship, interested or not interested, we all need to make a much better collective effort to be better friends. Be better friends. Receive our friends as well, appreciate the help, appreciate the love, show up for them, show up for ourselves, a fraction of the way we do for our romantic partners. Also, a woman with a robust friendship group or quality, deep friendships in her life, why is it so often that she's single? Like, you can't tell me that you don't have the time. You absolutely do have the time. And this whole my partner's my best friend, he can be in a way that you share deep, intimate things with them, but your partner can't be your best friend. And Esther Perel talks about this, that we require so much out of one person that we required from many people years and maybe centuries ago. Our friendships truly deserve to be as valuable as romantic partners. And this is something that only women now are starting to realize, to be honest. So I challenge you, especially if you're coupled. Are you investing in your friendships? Could you be better? Could you do more? Is the burden on your single friends? Are you being a good friend to your single friends? That's another thing that we'll probably talk about in another episode, is that are you icing them out because they don't have the direct experience that you have? They're not consolation prize for women who have found romantic partners, like I said. They are distinct, irreplaceable relationships that serve unique purposes in all of our lives, and we all benefit from it, guys, partnered or not. There is something so radical about recognizing the profound significance of your female friendship, and I think something that men really pick up on too. I think men are impressed and respect when a woman has strong boundaries around her friends and that her friends mean a lot to her, irrespective of the relationship. I really do. If you're a man and you're listening, let me know if I'm wrong, right, or somewhere in the middle, because that is just a theory that I have. I just think it goes back to confidence. I think it goes back to being interesting. I think everyone loves someone who has their own life, and I just think it all ties into that. I also saw 2 TikToks yesterday that really emphasized this for me in different ways. And one was, I'll link them both below, but one was about creating the village before you have children. And again, we'll probably talk about this in a different episode, but this is very important. Everyone has kids and then complains, or sometimes, about there's no more community, there's no more village. And she's basically saying, and she is a mother, she's basically saying, what kind of deposits were you making before you were trying to take withdrawals? And I think that this is huge, right? Because Naturally, when you're a parent, you expect your friends to show up for you, but then you also now expect your friends to show up for your children. And we can debate whether that's fair or not, but it's also like, what kind of friend were you before that? What kind of friend are you now? Now, it's not tit for tat and things go up and down. People live very dynamic lives, but it's not even just with friends. She was also referring to her partner's parents, so essentially her in-laws, and the deposits that she made with those people before she had kids. And she said, you should be thinking about this before you even get pregnant. And I couldn't agree more. You know, she was very fortunate. She had traveled for a week. She got back and she was super tired. And essentially her in-laws were like, don't worry, like, we'll just keep him for another day. Like, go sleep. We'll take him tomorrow. And she just felt so grateful. And any parent out there hearing that would feel so grateful as well, right? I'm not even a parent and I'm like, ooh, that is nice, right? Basically this big to-do that you have to do, someone's like, don't worry about it, you can do it tomorrow, I got you. That is a big hug. That is a pat on the back. That is a put a blanket over me while I'm taking a nap, right? That's so comforting. And she talks about how important it was for her to make those deposits way before a child came into play. And I thought it was very poignant and very honest, and something that, partnered or not, if you are someone who wants community in your life, and no man is an island, so you're going to have it in some way, shape, or form, what kind of deposits are you doing now? Being in community means you will be inconvenienced. There's no way around that. If you want to have friends or siblings or work partner or whatever, you are going to be inconvenienced, and you have to be okay with that. Of course, there's levels, there's nuance. These things go to a certain degree, but you know, it's like that old adage of picking up your friend from the airport. No one wants to do that, but we wouldn't need Uber if more people could get rides to and from the airport. That's what friends used to do. Moving, things like that, right? Back in the day, like, yes, if you had a big house, maybe you'd get movers, but moving was often done with your friends and family, and you'd probably treat them with like beer and pizza or dinner afterwards. So these are very simple examples, but I just want you to be thinking about ways that you can show up for your friends, ways that you can offer support, and believe and know that, like any economy, it's circular. It's just something to think about. The other TikTok was a woman saying that she was essentially a bit sad because she realized that she'll never have her friends and family celebrate her unless she gets married. And this is probably slightly off topic, and we can talk about it in another episode, that we do need to do a better job of being more creative with how we celebrate people in our lives, and not everything just boiling down to a man asking you to get married, or a woman. Like I said before, these relationships are not secondary. They are truly essential. They are our lifelines. They're often what makes everything else in our lives possible, and they truly do keep us going. My friends have gotten me through bad times, sad times, rough times. You know, I'm not going to disregard the men and partners that I've had in my life, but when I think of some really poignant heartbreaks or deep frustrations or feeling victimized, I can literally visualize those conversations and visualize those women that held space for me. That is something that will stay with me for the rest of my life. When we pull back and we look, we get macro for a second at the societal landscape, we start to see why these connections aren't just personally meaningful, but I think are essential to the larger structure. Simply put, there's the cultural assumption that once you find the one, your friendships become somehow less essential and inherently hold less value. As if a romantic partner, let alone a male, can fulfill all of the connection needs in your life. But research and lived experiences tell us something very different. One of the most persistent myths that we navigate as women is that our man should be our everything, our best friend, our lover, our therapist, our co-parent, our financial partner, our intellectual equal, our partner in crime, our bedroom buddy, literally everything. It's a tall order that not only places tremendous pressure on one another in our romantic relationships, but also at the same time devalues all the irreplaceable roles of women that we have in our friendships, that we play in our lives, if that makes sense. So there's a book called Marriage, a History, and it's from Dr. Stephanie Coontz. She is a family historian and author, and she points out that this expectation is relatively new, which if you've ever done any type of reading on the history of marriage and the history of romantic relationships, you know this, right? Throughout most of Western history, marriage was not primarily about companionship. This was about land. This was about class. The idea that a husband should be your primary emotional confidant emerged primarily in the 20th century, and it is an expectation that relationships simply weren't designed to fulfill exclusively. So you might say, okay, that's fine, Chantel. I get the history. I get what you're saying, but I want my man to be my best friend. Like, why can't my male partner fulfill the same needs as my female friends? And listen, to each his own, but there are several key reasons as to why you may notice that a male partner can't fully fulfill the same needs as your girlfriends. You might not notice this, but if you do, this is why. So first, we're going to go from just like a neurobiological point of view that women's brains tend to process emotional experiences very differently. So women friends tend to engage in what scientists call as like co-rumination. And I actually laughed when I read this because it's so true. Like we sit and we process every single thing, like to the most granular detail, right? That's what we like. That's like how we like to analyze things. That's how we like to discuss things. That's how we like to get to the crux of everything. Detailed discussion and analysis of problems is what many women find very validating, me included. This processing style often feels foreign to men because men have been socialized to just be very solution focused, right? They're just trying to get from point A to point B. They are very unconcerned with the process. It's also why, on a side note, I believe that women are better cheaters than men because women are extremely detail oriented and men are not. So take that for what it is. Second, there's the shared experience component, right? Women understand other women. Like we are going through very similar experiences. You add in class, you add in race, you add in education, you add in body image. Like there's nothing like another woman because she understands what you're going through. Like so much of what we go through as women is very gender specific. We live in a patriarchal, misogynistic society. I have literally been blue in the face trying to explain to men things that are inherently like feminine, like a female experience in this world. Sometimes guys get it, oftentimes they don't, and it is incredibly frustrating, but it's like they live side by side in a completely different universe, right? You're talking about things in the workplace, reproductive issues, like a man telling you to smile on the street, a woman being assaulted, and the first question people ask is, what was she wearing? Like, where was she? These are things that men just, you literally have to like lead their hands to understand. Sometimes it's essential if you're sharing space and life with a man, but sometimes you just don't want to. Thirdly, even in the healthiest romantic relationships, power dynamics still exist. I'm not going to argue because this is one of the many hills I will die on. Power dynamics exist in every single relationship. You do not have any relationship from the most minute to the most extreme on this planet that do not have power dynamics. There's no example you can give to me where a power dynamic does not exist. If you truly don't believe that, you are delusional. I love that for you, but you are delusional. Subtle power dynamics that exist often affect your communication. Like friendships between your girls excel at creating space for validation without judgment and involved more balanced emotional labor. There's just more exchange going between the both of us because there's less of a power dynamic between us. Still exists, could be very subtle, could be extreme, but still exists, but it's less. Most women that have close friends and are in community with other women see them on equal playing field, right? Therefore, you can exchange that emotional labor and that power dynamic is less extreme. Therefore, it's less of a burden and less of a bump. And honestly, maybe even most importantly, healthy like female friendships offer something that romantic friendships just can't. And that is a complete and utter absence of sex. Dun, 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 dun. Yep. How could this not come up, right? It creates, especially as a woman, I don't think men maybe feel the same way. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But especially as a woman, being in close community with someone, like maybe even someone that you could be naked in front of, because nudity does not equal sexuality and nudity is not inherently sexual. creates such a level of freedom to express yourself and truly be authentic that is very, very hard to get in a romantic relationship. Some people do have it, but I would argue they are the exception in relationships, not the rule. And that's just something that, oh my God, that is, just thinking about it makes me emo, because it's like, that is something that you cannot buy. That is something so good that money cannot buy. And if it's difficult for you to wrap your head around it, if you have a close male friend in your life that is inherently non-sexual, like not even a little bit, like not, oh, we flirt. No, I mean like completely like platonic, then you know what I mean. Like that is a safe space. That is a blessing to be able to have that space with someone, share that space with someone, and know that sex has nothing to do with it and never will. Crazy. The healthiest approach, honestly, isn't ranking these relationships, but just recognizing the distinct roles. That's what it's about. Women with the highest reported well-being maintain both strong romantic partnerships and deep female friendships. You want to know the happiest women? I know that there's other data that says like the happiest women are single and don't have children, which of course I believe. But I do believe that women that are able to hold space for romantic partnerships and strong female relationships are the happiest women. I really believe that. Understanding that expecting one relationship to fulfill everything is both unrealistic and unnecessarily limiting. Like, come on, there's so many beautiful people in the world that you can be in community with that can fulfill the multitude and dynamic portions of you. Why not engage with that? And as Dr. Kuntz put it, the notion that one person should meet all of your needs is not just unrealistic, it can be destructive. Diversifying your emotional investments is as important as diversifying your financial ones. So I know all the girlies are happy to invest in the S&P 500 and Vanguard. That's an index fund. Index fund your life. Index fund your relationships. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so that's this week's episode. This was truly just the beginning on like the deep dive into female friendships in the Sisterhood Chronicles. This is something I will absolutely be exploring more and more. So if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, obviously. Leave a cheeky review on Spotify and or Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, and DM me your thoughts on Insta at the Sage Sorority. Have a beautiful week, guys. I'll talk to you next week. Bye!